Alright, in today's video, we are going to discuss how we can enable subscription in Apollo Server version 3. Why version 3? If you see in the documentation, they have mentioned that Apollo Server 3 removes built-in support for subscriptions. This means they have separated the implementation of subscription from Apollo Server package. In order to enable subscription, we have to swap the Apollo Server Express package. So uh, let's get started and see how we can. Let me just create a simple Apollo server using Apollo Server 3. Then we will migrate to Apollo Server Express, and there are some additional steps which is well documented here. So we are going to follow this guide. So we are not okay. So let's just start the dev server. Okay, this server is now running on port 4000. So you can see this is the default Apollo server running. Okay, I had tested a few times earlier, so there are responses there. Okay, so this is our endpoint. We can refresh and still open the same file. Okay, you can see inside the query we have one query defined, that is hello. So if we run the query, we'll get hello world web. So this is the basic very pretty simple GraphQL server, and we can also define mutation. So let's just say uh, register. So for register, this is going to return a user type. Let's just say user. And what should be the user? So this is going to ID, username, password, email, DOB, and thus age will be a computed one. So what we can do in the you can add reservoir for the user. Okay, okay. To the reservoir. This we have register. So if register in the inside register mutation, we have to return a user type, right? So what we can do here is we can receive a set of data from the user. While the user is registering, the user must provide username, email, password, and his date of birth. So let me just paste this. Okay, this is the info we are going to get in the argument. So we just need to destructure it, right? So what we can do here, we are getting the data from the user, we are appending those data to the new user, and we are generating an ID. This is a simple GraphQL server example where we have one query and one mutation and another resolver for just computing the age from the date of birth that has been provided by the user. So when we query this mutation, we get some result like this. Like we have to provide username, email, password and DFV. So from that we get our ID and the age which has been computed. So these two fields are just generated inside this resolver. So this is where things get interesting. Have to simply type subscription, and let's say just what should be the subscription type. User registration, we're going to return the user back. So to define a subscription, we can see here it says your schema subscription type defines top level 5 fields that client can subscribe to. So clients can subscribe to our user registration. Whenever a new user is registered, this event will happen and the listeners will notified about this event. So whenever you query a subscription, you query something like that. So let's just create another tab to query subscription. So what will be the subscription name? Our subscription name is user registration. So let's just save the file. So these three things we are going to listen for. Whenever a new user is registered, the listeners will get these three data for each new user. So when we start, we cannot connect to the Apollo server. Before version 3, it was very simple, but now to enable subscription, we have to migrate our Apollo server to Apollo server Express package. So let's start the migration process. So this is our brand new server. Okay, which is going to run fine. Okay, so we have successfully migrated the server from Apollo server to uh, Apollo server Express. So as you can see in the package, so we have migrated to Apollo server Express. Our server migration is complete. This is working fine, right? Okay, this mutation is working fine. So we need a subscription to register for. Right now we don't have any support for subscription, so you can see the status is red. So it says unable to connect to WebSocket localhost 4000 slash GraphQL. Okay, no problem. As mentioned in the post here, we have to swap to the Apollo server Express package, and we have done that process. So this is done. Now we have to install these packages. So we are now installing the subscription transfer compass and GraphQL tools schema. So now we can copy paste. So now what? So for subscription to work, we need to import subscription transfer WS and GraphQL subscription server from subscription server from subscriptions transfer WS package and make executable schema from GraphQL tool schema. So now if you go to the documentation, you can see it says the app is written value from Express. So we have already done that process, right? we have already created the server like this HTTP server one, right? So what we need to do here is we need to create a subscription server. After the server creation, I will create another variable. Subscription server is equals to subscription server that we have imported create, and this will take an object. Inside this object we can provide the schema and the execute the subscribe on connect, which is a async function. So let's just say on whenever the server is disconnect, we can print console log dot disconnect. So this server here on line number 80 is the main HTTP server, which is a Apollo server, and this subscription server is only for the subscription. And now what we can do here is we can pass, as you can see in the parameter, we have to pass the server, which is the HTTP server, and the path is uh, you can say server.graphql path. So now if we save this file, it should work fine. Okay, then our server is now running. Okay, subscription field must return async iterable received undefined. So we have not already set up the subscription resolver, right? So what we need to do here is we need to create a resolver for subscription. Create a resolver for the subscription, and it is here we have to call the subscribe function. The subscribe function should return a iterable. So this should return pops up dot async iterator user registration, and I can just use that. So where the pops up come from? So now um, let's just install another package which is documented here. So like publishing an event, you can see we have to install GraphQL subscription. So let's just add GraphQL subscription package, and from that we can import PubSub. So this PubSub should be passed as a context, right? We have to pass this as a context to the mutation. So to pass a context, what we can do here is inside the Apollo server function, we can declare context as PubSub. So by this we can pass PubSub to our mutation. So we can consume the PubSub function here and say PubSub.publish user registration, and the user registration data is going to be the new user. Okay, now one more thing, we have to access this PubSub here. Now this was a little bit tricky. This is where I got confused because I just skipped the documentation here where it said operation context. As you can see, for subscriptions you provide an onConnect function to the subscription server constructor. This function receives the connection params in an object as the first argument, as well as socket, WebSocket, and connection context as the second and third argument respectively. So if your onConnect function returns an object, listen this very carefully, this is very important, it is passed to your resolvers as the context argument. So what does this mean? This means we cannot just simply consume like we used to consume pops up in the mutation. If you do this, this will be undefined. because the context to subscribe function is passed from this on connect. So this was the important thing I was missing. So so decided to share this with you guys. So what we can do here is we can create a pops up instance, and this pops up is passed to the main server as context here, and uh, context for the mutation. Okay, so context for the subscribe will be written from here. So here we have to return an object, and this object content pops up. So this is the context for subscription. So now we can consume this pops up function from our mutation and subscription package. So what we need to do here is we can ignore the parent and args. We can destructure the pops up. We are going to call async iterator on this pops up with the key user registration, and we are publishing here the data and the event name, and I hope this should be good to go. Okay, now we can see we are now connected to the server. So if I open the Chrome, and we can see here we have already started listening. So let me just close these things, and we can run subscription. Now you can see the status is connected to WebSocket, and it's being listening. So you can see connected to WebSocket localhost 4000 server GraphQL, and it is listening for the subscription. So what is the subscription? This subscription is our user registration. So whenever we do a mutation where the user gets registered, a new user gets registered, clients who have subscribed to the subscription user registration will get the data they have asked here. And a user get registered, as you can see we got the data here. So response received at the timing here. So if another user get registered, so you can see got the data 8 seconds after that. So if I change the data here, let's say just randomize some data. Okay, so if I just change the data path here, you can see I got the new data here. So this is how subscription works in Apollo 3. As you can see, Apollo Server Express version 3.6. So you have to manually add so let's just recap what we have done here. We just create a resolver for subscription, and we just declared a type for subscription, what the client is going to subscribe, and we add the resolver for the subscription, and inside the mutation from which we want to push a notification, we need to publish. So these three steps is required in order to enable subscription in our Apollo server. But this was the important thing, the subscription server creation part, where we have to pass the server, and the context that we are passing the pops up as context should be written inside the onConnect method.